Hey everybody, this is Ben Betts. I'm here to demonstrate my plugin expansion. You can see here the GUI. This is done for Will Perkle's audio plugin design class, project number 1. And this plugin essentially is a stereo expander. It really is not too complicated. It lets you adjust the mid-level and the side level. For those of you not familiar, mids adjust the center of the stereo image and sides adjust kind of the wider parts of the stereo image that you're listening to. And to demonstrate, or at least take a look a bit more in depth at that, let's look at the block diagram here. So you can see here is our sum, which is the stuff our channels have in common, so our center image, and our difference here. The stuff they don't have in common is the wider parts of the stereo image. So our sum center image is pretty much not really affected that much by this plugin. It just goes straight through. Although we can adjust, attenuate, or even boost if we desire. Really, the most of the editing and processing happens on the difference, as this is a stereo expander plugin. So you can see that we are able to cut low frequencies in the difference channel, as well as we've got a low boosting parametric EQ, an all-pass filter, and a high shelf filter in here. We can adjust the levels of all of those, and then we sum it all back up at the end and send it back out. So not much to it. So let's go ahead and get right to it then. Here, let me start. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn this down to about here, which will let me kind of simulate being really close to what it would sound like if this wasn't in the signal chain. Here, that's bypassed. But really, I want to do a little bit of A-Bing here. Of course, we have the mid knob, which you can really hear a big difference as to whether that's there or not. The side level is really what we're here for. If I turn that up just even a little bit, we get a much wider stereo image compared to the original. It's not hugely noticeable, but when you turn it off, it definitely sounds like it's missing, which is very nice. By the way, you probably want to be listening to this with headphones on. That'll make a big difference here. So, of course, after these adjustments, we have the high-pass filter for the side, which is shown here. So, given that I have a lot of piano in this tune with some low-frequency noise, it's probably a good idea to turn this up just a little bit to prevent it becoming a bit too boomy in the side frequencies, or sorry, the side of the stereo image. And now, here, we have our filters shown here. Here's our low boosting or cutting parametric filter, our high shelf, and our all-pass filter. And of course the output level as well. I'll talk about this button in a minute, but these three are all these three columns are relatively self-explanatory. Our center boosting frequency and our Q, a gain there, so we can make adjustments to the stereo image. You can hear the bass coming out just a little bit more. I know that I cut it here. Yeah. Pretty mild attenuation, but yeah, there it is. So high shelf works very much as you would expect it to. We can crank it, perhaps get a little bit more of the cymbals in our side mix. And all pass, basically, as you can see here, these three are all processed separately. So all pass is kind of all the noise that isn't captured by these guys. So if you want the rest of your signal, the not lows and the not highs, to be louder or quieter, this is where you would adjust that. So here, just to make it a bit more noticeable, we're just going to listen to our sides. And here's what it kind of sounds like without the middle of the frequency range. We can bring it back in and it, sounds much more complete. We also have the ability to adjust whether this knob is enabled or not. Our all-pass cutoff is interesting. It might be kind of counterintuitive, as an all-pass filter doesn't usually, you don't think of a cutoff frequency, but it does adjust the sound. So what I can show here I'll actually take this to an analyzer. If I turn on the EQ listen, which is shown with these blue squares here, what the EQ listen does is it allows us to directly listen to a purely EQ'd sound with no other kind of spatial mixing at all. So we take the center channel and, well, you know, the center of the stereo image and feed it through the EQ processing and then just split it directly out to our outputs. So if I turn this on, it's quite low. To turn that up. Alright, so if I want to use our accurate analyzer, I'll turn off this music and we'll look at the frequency here. So the all-pass filter actually adjusts attenuation kind of, not as like a low pass, but it certainly just boosts the low frequencies up until a certain point. It's almost as like a low shelf. But it's interesting to note that an all-pass filter would have this kind of effect. So that is pretty much all that there is to the expansion plugin. I really hope that you like it and hope that you like the effect that it has. I think that it can add a very nice subtle or not so subtle effect to whatever you throw it onto. So thank you, and catch you next time.